Hey, so when we ask the question, why is there evil and suffering? Why is there pain? The answer, the prominent answer is that you hear most of the time from apologists is the free will of man. So we say, why is there pain and suffering? And then the answer, usually the number one answer is because men have the free will to choose, and that's what they choose to do. So Romans 1 talks about how we suppress the truth in unrighteousness. John 3:19 says that Jesus says that we love the darkness. Deuteronomy 12 and verse 8, it says that everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And then Romans 8:18 through 26 says that we live in a fallen world. And so the initial response to why is there evil, the initial answer is the free will of man. We suppress the truth in unrighteousness, and we choose evil. We choose ourself. We choose darkness over light. In fact, John 3:19 I mentioned already says that men love darkness instead of the light. We love the darkness, and so this especially this love the darkness thing is not part of your discussion. I mean, earlier when I said, that we, all things considered, well, this is one of the things that's not considered because people don't want to admit that they're wrong. People don't want to admit that they're evil. People don't want to admit that they're able to commit acts of evil. They don't want to admit that they're sinners. They will admit that something's wrong in the world. Today we call that broken. So when you're, having conversations with your friends and they say, yeah, boy, the world sure is broken. I mean, that's their attempt. That's not a biblical description. Understand that. But that's their attempt to say that something's wrong. And so you can follow that up with, yeah, it's more than broken. And then, you can point out this is what we see on the news and in the world today is not broken, like, because you could fix broken. You can use duct tape, or you can use glue, or you can do something to fix something that's broken. But this is worse. What we see in the world is worse than broken. It's called sin. And if you look at the things going on in the world today, in Nigeria, and even in our own backyard, you can easily see that the terrible things that people face. And you talk about trafficking children. That's not broken. This is the problem with the secular worldview. When you look at trafficking of children and then call that broken, that's not a just description. Forget accurate. That's not even an accurate description. It's not just. There's no justice in saying, that human trafficking thing going on there with the children, that's just broken. No, that's an insult that you would call it just broken. I mean, like, how blind are you? I mean, why would you be happy with just saying, well, it's just broken. It's just broken. And so when you go to have these conversations about the problem of evil, understand that this idea of we love the darkness and we suppress the truth most likely is not going to be part of the conversation unless you bring it up, because the other side, people that don't know God and don't want to love God, don't actually even want to know truth, are not going to admit that. And so prepare yourself, like I said in the other video, prepare yourself for not having a fully informed a whole, like WHOLE, a whole, or even a complete conversation about this. And so again, regarding this the question of pain and suffering. It's not just a tough question for the Christians in our Christian worldview. The problem of pain and suffering is a tough question for everybody, no matter what you believe. If you're a theist, like you believe in God, or you're atheist, well, there ain't no God, or you're like Buddhist or Hindu or pantheist or panentheist or a naturalist, whatever your worldview is, you gotta explain the obvious. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is pain and suffering. And then your explanation for that is what's going to give you credibility. Your explanation for pain and suffering is what's going to give you a second hearing. Your explanation for pain and suffering is what's going to give you a second or third conversation. And so if what you offer doesn't rise to meet the level of pain that the person is experiencing, they're not going to want to listen to what you say. It's just obvious. They're going to write you off because what you just said is stupid. Stupid is not a theological term. It's not really a good term to use in apologetics, but it just popped in my head. But so if what you say, what you offer as an explanation for why you're standing at the foot of the bed of your child who's dying of cancer, and they're all, got tubes running in and out of them. If what you offer as an explanation for that doesn't rise to, I say somehow, but it's so difficult, but to rise to meet at least to the same level what the parents are going through. If it were me, you got nothing else to say. If what you've got to say is that my pain is just an illusion. What I'm suffering is just in my head. And so this question of pain and suffering in the world is the hardest question to adequately, right? To adequately answer for any worldview. So their answer has to be, the answer that they give has to be adequate. It has to rise to the level of pain that either the parents or that person is experiencing. It's got to rise to meet their need. And the need that we're asking, when we're asking for an answer, is something that's adequate, something that's reasonable. Don't tell me it's an illusion. How about I slap you in the face and punch you in the throat and see if that's an illusion? Or I mean, how about if I steal your money from your bank account? And is that an illusion? The pain that you would be feeling when you lose your house because someone stole your business partner, stole your half of the business? It's not an illusion. That explanation doesn't rise to help. It doesn't add to in any way to bring about some kind of resolution. So the answer has got to be adequate. And for Christians, listen, most of y'all are Christians listening to this, I'm pretty sure. If you're a Christian, don't say God works in mysterious. Don't stand at the foot of the bed of someone who's dying or somebody who just lost their child or going through a divorce or something terrible, some kind of terrible cancer or something else. Don't stand there and say, well, God works in mysterious ways. Surely you will think about that and come to the conclusion that I should probably not say that. I mean, how does that help? Someone's dying of cancer and you say, well, God works in mysterious ways. It doesn't help. It doesn't rise to, it says more about your inability to help. It says more about your inability to add to, in fact, that's what you're doing. You're adding to their suffering with such a inadequate comment. So if someone dies, like in a car wreck or cancer or something like that, don't say God works in mysterious ways, and don't say, well, at least they heard the gospel. We want people to hear the gospel, but we want people to respond to it. And I know in my own family, my brother heard the gospel, but up until the day a day and a half before he passed away, he told me he didn't want to hear the gospel. And in fact, if I was going to pray for him, he wanted me to leave the room. So there wasn't any indication that his heart softened and said yes to Jesus. Now I know what they mean is that we don't know that when he closed his eyes, he said, God, forgive me. And God accepted him. Now, that is a possibility. I understand that's a possibility, but don't go standing in a room with the family saying, I know God's up in heaven with the rest of the family, or that your brother is up in heaven with the rest of the family, when there's been no verbal. I mean, don't give false hope, and don't give inadequate hope. So what we want to do is offer reasonable explanations that are coherent, not flippant, cookie cutter Sunday school answers that amount to nothing more than an insult. But in our conversations about the question of pain and suffering, for like 1 Peter 3:15 says, with gentleness and respect. With gentleness and respect, we're supposed to be preparing ourselves to defend what we believe. And so as we go through this, I mean, this next thing I'm going to mention is such a hard thing to consider, but it's really it's really true. If you're expecting to fully know, right? If you want to answer for cancer, you want to answer for child suffering and trafficking, and you want an answer for the question of so many bad things that happen. If you want an answer that's full and covers everything and resolves all of your pain, I don't. The Christian worldview doesn't even do that. What the Christian world offers what the Christian world offers, what Jesus offers, what God offers is him with us in the pain. He doesn't always take it away. I saw my dad die of cancer. He believed at one point that he was healed. And I remember thinking, I hope so. But my dad's childlike faith, he had just been a Christian less than 2 years before he passed away. And you don't want to give false hope. And if we're expecting to be fully satiated about this question of pain and suffering, you're gonna come away discouraged. What the Christian worldview offers that no other worldview offers is God is with us. And he redeems our pain through his own, through Christ's death on the cross. We're going to talk more about that. But if your question is which world view offers the fullest, the clearest, the most robust, coherent, and reasonable explanation for pain and suffering and evil, well, that's who I'm going to. That's where the Christian worldview stands alone, because other worldviews don't offer that. There's natural evil like fires and earthquakes and tsunamis and droughts and floods and those kind of things. And the explanation I've heard for that is that those things, those natural disasters, offer a sustainable planet. We have a fallen creation. We know that is what the Bible teaches also. So that's natural evil. But then moral evil, the answer begins, like I've already mentioned, it begins with God gave men free will. We are free to choose, and we suppress the truth, Romans 1, and we love the darkness, John 3. And so God gives us free will. We make choices. We don't always choose what is right. Only in the Christian story of reality does God step into our human race and become one of us, and he feels and experiences our pain. In John 11, the story of Lazarus, it says that Jesus wept, right? So because he saw how grieved Mary and Martha were and the others over Lazarus' death. And I even think, in a sense, that in John 4, the woman at the well, and in John 8, the woman caught in adultery, that Jesus entered into their pain. Their pain was rejection. Their pain was persecution, especially the woman caught in adultery, was persecution by religious people. So Jesus stepped into that, and he loved and cared for those two ladies. And so the Christian worldview, it shows that Jesus paid the ultimate price and loss and hurt, and he identifies with us. And now we can say, Emmanuel, this is what we sing at Christmas time, God with us, and he identifies with us. He paid the ultimate price. He redeems my suffering through his. That's high Christology. That's good theology that you're not going to get in the average conversation about pain and suffering. That Christ redeems our pain through his own death on the cross, and by faith we can receive salvation. We can come to him his way. You don't get to make up your own way. You should listen to people when they're talking. Is this person making up their own way to get, a cultural, be good, try harder, you need to have more faith, work and pay penance and count the beads and say the prayers and go to the priest and just, you got to be baptized and you got to do these things to get God to accept you. That's another gospel, and that's works salvation. But if we come to God the way that he says, we come to him by faith. You're saved by faith. And so then we realize that God loves us and he understands us, and that he's present with us in our suffering. Again, and I'll mention this again later, but like the alternative to keeping in our mind God as an explanation and a remedy and some solace for the pain and suffering that we see in the world is that he's with us. The alternative is to take God out of this conversation, and now what are you left with? Now you're left with just the world's way of seeing things, and this is where we go back to the point of Richard Dawkins, that you're just blind indifference and pitiful indifference, and you're in the Eastern religions where your pain is nothing more than an illusion. It's just all in your head. And so if you remove God from the conversation, because people are going to want to say, well, God's not powerful enough and he doesn't love us enough to stop the pain, and so we're going to remove him from this equation. Well, if you remove God from the equation, you didn't take away, you didn't solve anything. You didn't take away suffering because you took away God. Suffering's still here. What you took away is the best explanation for the way things are. That's a description or definition of truth. The Christian worldview is the best explanation for the way things are. And so I hope you're encouraged. That was really meaty and really good conversation to have with your friends and with yourself as you encourage yourself to keep following Jesus through these difficult conversations. So God bless you. I'll see you on the next video.